Welcome to Acolyte Training for Chevy Chase United Methodist Church. What is an acolyte, and what job do they perform? Acolytes are helpers that are part of the worship team, preparing everyone in the congregation to worship God. The primary duty of an acolyte is to light and extinguish or put out the candles on or near an altar, otherwise known as the Lord's table or our communion table. This is a picture of an altar that may be set up in your home. Today we will talk about why an acolyte lights the candles and the order that they do, to show you the duties and responsibilities and expectations of your job. Acolytes remind everyone to be reverent at the Lord's table because it is where we gather with Christ to celebrate communion, a holy meal. Being reverent means to show honor or respect, and we do this by bowing our heads and sitting and standing respectfully while we are serving as an acolyte. Since ancient times, light and fire have symbolized God being here with us at home, at school, at work, and in a worship service. When you are preparing to acolyte in the sanctuary, you will put on your robe, otherwise known as an alb, in the narthex of the sanctuary. The narthex is where the ushers and greeters welcome people into the service. The ushers can help you if you need help, as well as there's an acolyte's book with any reminders of things you might forget. The acolyte book sits on the shelf above the albs. The vestments or clothes you wear as an acolyte are your robe or your alb, your cincture or the rope you tie around your waist, and a cross lanyard, which has a cross, and each week you pick the lanyard that matches the color of your cincture or your belt. The color of the cincture matches the altar cloths and is determined by the time of year on our church calendar. The times of year are Advent, which is the beginning of our Christian year. That's when we wear colors of purple or blue. At Christmas time, we wear gold or white. Then we have a time called Ordinary Time, which is our time after Epiphany, when we wear green. Then we move into Lent, and we wear purple between Ash Wednesday until Holy Week. During Holy Week, we wear red. At Easter, we wear either gold or white. Then we come into Pentecost time, and that's when we wear red. Then we follow another ordinary time, which is called the time after Pentecost, and that is when we wear green. The Christian calendar is posted just to the left side of the robes on the wall. Once you've determined the correct color, you can place the lanyard in that color onto your cross and get ready to put on your robe. Select a robe that's a good length for you and put it on. Acolytes should put on their vestments 15 minutes before the service begins and make sure they have their candle lighter and the cross in the back of the sanctuary. There is a button near your neck that you will want to snap first. Then you will tie the strings at your waist. You can make a nice little bow. If you need help, you can always ask an usher to help you. There are 2 more buttons near your neck that you'll need to snap to finalize getting your alb on. Then you will want to put on your cross lanyard. Remember to put it underneath your hood in the back. If help is needed from someone else acolyting, you can always help them. Now it's time to grab your cincture or belt and make sure you get the right color. To tie the belt, you'll want to fold it in half and pull the 2 loose knot ends to the half section and loop them underneath the midpoint. Then you'll wrap it around your waist and pull, making basically another loop right around the halfway mark to put it into place and hold it securely. Here's a closer look. Now you have your vestments on and can proceed with getting ready to walk down the aisle with the crucifer and the candle lighter. You can let the ushers know that you're ready to go in as soon as the processional hymn will start. In the sanctuary, acolytes use a brass candle lighter that has a long wick inside of it called a taper. An acolyte checks the length of the taper to be sure it will be long enough to carry the light in and out of the service. Usually 1 inch to get started works. If the taper or candle lighter needs to be replaced, please check with an usher or altar guild member. The taper is usually extended by about 1 inch or 2 and lit with a match directly before the light is brought into the worship service during a processional hymn. If the taper gets lit too early and you need to extinguish it, just pull the taper back into the housing and it will go out. Then you can relight it right before the processional hymn starts. This is the order that a crucifer and possibly torchbearers or a banner or flag bearer would walk in front of the acolytes. Let's get ready to process. The taper is extended occasionally to stay lit as an acolyte takes slow, short steps and reverently walks the light into the service to arrive at the Lord's table or altar. The crucifer can hold the cross as high and as comfortable as is possible. You can keep the pole slightly to your right so that you may see well. It is important to be safe and maintain distance from those around you to keep the flame under control at all times. We try to stay at least 2 pews apart from the person in front of us. Keep the taper length up to make sure it stays lit. Acolytes bring light into the service to remind us that Christ is coming into the service with us. To recognize Christ's presence and worship God, we stop and face the cross in the center of the altar and bow before lighting the candles. First, we light the candle on the right side of the altar after we have bowed in the center of the altar at the cross. We then walk back to the center of the altar and bow again before lighting the candle on the left. Then we walk back to the center of the altar and bow before tapping the crucifer gently on the back to let them know we have finished lighting the candles and it is time to go and sit in our chairs. The crucifer will place the cross in the holder next to the organ and then proceed to their seat on the left-hand side of the sanctuary. The acolyte with the candle holder will proceed to the right-hand side of the sanctuary, put the candle lighter into its holder next to their chair, and sit down. The 2 candles on the left and right side of the altar remind us that Christ is both human and divine, just like the 2 candles that we can use on an altar in our own homes. During different times of the year, we can also have more than 2 candles at the altar. We may have candelabras on either side of the altar. In this case, when there's only 1 acolyte and a crucifer, the acolyte will follow the same order as she did with the 2 candles. She will start on the right-hand side and light the candle, stop in the middle to bow, and go and light the candle on the left-hand side, remembering to go and stop into the middle and bow again. Then she will do the right-hand side candles first, starting with the one closest to the candle she's already lit, and work her way down, catching all of the candles very carefully. Then she will go back to the center of the altar and bow again, and then go over and light the candles on the left. When she has completed lighting all the candles, she will go back to the center of the altar, bow, and then tap on the crucifer's shoulder again, and then they'll go to their respective seats. Sometimes when we have candelabras, we can find 2 acolytes to help us light the candles in a more efficient manner. The acolyte on the right will light all the candles on the right after bowing at the altar, as will the candle lighter on the left light all the candles on the left. They'll start with the individual candles on the altar, then proceed to go from the top to the bottom with all the candles on the candelabra. When they're finished, they will bow again at the center of the altar and then extinguish their candles, notify the crucifer to sit down, and go and sit down themselves. During special times of the Christian year, we will light the Christ candle. The Christ candle should always be the first candle lit when acolyting. If you see the Christ candle there, make sure to light it first, and then go up and proceed to the altar, bowing, lighting the right candle, and then the left candle, bowing and finishing. Now the service is over and it's time to extinguish the candles and exit with the recessional hymn. The candles will be extinguished in exactly the opposite order that they were lit. You will start by extinguishing the left candle with the bell, and then moving over to the right candle. Since it's the only candle still left lit here, you will use it to light your taper before extinguishing it, and then carry the light out into the world. Don't forget to keep the taper up high enough to keep the light lit all the way to the back of the sanctuary, where you can extinguish it once you are in the narthex. When the Christ candle has been lit, you will follow the same order as before, putting out the left candle first and then the right, but you will extinguish the right candle, this time coming to light your taper with the Christ candle and carrying the light from the Christ candle out to the congregation. When you have all the candelabra candles to put out, you will do exactly the opposite order, starting with the far left lower candles and working your way from the bottom to the top to extinguish them with a bell. Once you finish the left candelabra, you'll go back to the center, bow, and then move to the right candelabra, starting from the bottom and working your way to the top. Then you'll bow in the center again, then extinguish the left candle on the altar, bow in the center, and before extinguishing the right candle, you will light it and then use the bell to extinguish it, bow again at the center, and then let the crucifer know that it's time to go. Remember to keep the wick up high enough to bring the light out into the world. When you have two acolytes, you will extinguish the candelabras in the opposite order that you lit them. You will start at the bottom on the left and the right and work your way up to the top. Before you go to the candles on the altar, you will stop and bow and then light both of your candle lighters with the flames on your respective candles. Use the bell to extinguish them and then turn, and both of you will walk the light out after you bow. Make sure to turn around, going the opposite direction from the candle lighter standing next to you so that there's no problem with lighting anything on fire. At the end of the service, you'll want to put the crucifer back in its holder next to the organ and take the candle lighters back into the sacristy where they're stored in the bottom drawer. You'll put one of them in the bottom drawer and many times leave one of them on the counter so that the altar guild will know to check the length of the wick and make sure that they're ready for the next service. Now that you've finished putting away the candle lighter and the crucifer, you'll want to put away your robe or your alb, your cincture, your belt, and your cross with a lanyard. Carefully hang them on the hanger so that they don't fall off. Put your robe on a hanger and hang it up nicely. Thank you for being an important part of our worship team.